and welcome to Borgcast Original Series 3.4 with Anne-Marie and Peter.
Hello.
Hello, he's back from our hollybobs.
Yeah, all refreshed and stuff.
Yeah. We have some last time from the Paradise Syndrome, that gobshite thing.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Mark Hyman writes, it was only after listening to the podcast episode that I made the connection. But with the diverting a large astronomical object and the ancient symbols being musical notes, this episode and Strange New World's Children of the Comet bear a passing resemblance. Suffice to say, Spock should have picked up on it much sooner and definitely asked for Uhura to consult.
Yes. Although, to be honest, they didn't make much of the musical sequence thing. It just ended up with Kirk pressing a button, didn't it? So
yeah.
That was a bit redundant anyway.
Yeah.
But yes, there are obviously parallels to be had there.
And we've got another last time on Borgcast Voyager, Tuvix. Wendy Heatherwood writes, I know you don't care, but there was a menagerie episode in Voyager. There was a huge ship full of different environments for all the ship's crew they were kidnapping. It was an episode that existed.
Oh, what a surprise. Well, tonight we're covering the Enterprise incidents, the title of which comes from the real-life Pueblo incident, when a US patrol boat was captured by North Korea during the Vietnam War. Oh. It's written by D.C. Fontana, 8th of 10, and I think possibly the reason why we get an interesting female protagonist in this. Yeah. And directed by John Meredith Lucas, his last one.
Klingon ship.
Your ship is surrounded, Captain.
You board this ship, I'll blow it up.
I must see your authorization.
Over there.
Accept what is happening between us.
I cannot allow the captain to be further destroyed. I say now that Captain Kirk ordered the Enterprise across the neutral zone on his own initiative and his craving for glory.
That's a lie.
He is not sane.
You lie! I'll kill you!
We will take a small band of Romulans aboard the Enterprise as its commander. By your own standards of normality, this man is not fully competent.
No, not now.
The doctor has now confirmed your testimony.
I instinctively used the Vulcan death grip.
Your instincts are still good. The captain is dead.
And we open with a teaser. It's McCoy's chief medical officer's log. And he's concerned about Kirk. He's resisted all attempts to have a psych profile done.
Watch us wreck the mic, watch us wreck the mic, watch us wreck the mic. Psych.
But, you know, he's like, is it just that it's been so long since they've had any shore leave or whatever? Is it just sort of, you know, too long without a break? And then Kirk is clearly snapping at everybody and not being his normal self, and he sends them into the neutral zone.
Yeah, just proving that Kirk could be worse.
Yeah. And there isn't any order from Starfleet to do that, which would normally be needed. And then they say that Romulans are using a Klingon designer. I'm guessing this is so they can reuse some ships.
That's right, yes. So they lost, unfortunately, the Romulan Warbird model that they had for Balance of Terror. So instead of doing new shots, they've ended up just reusing the D7, which is a bit cheap. And the worst thing is, of course, in broadcast order, this was shown before Ilana Troyer. So the first time you saw a Klingon ship in the original series, it was being used by the Romulans, which seems a bit wrong somehow, but there you go.
Yeah.
It has to be said, in the remastered version, they, at one point, they're surrounded by 3 ships, and they make one of them a warbird, which is a nice touch. Plus, they also put, like, the warbird paintings on the undersides of the D7s.
Yeah.
So that's quite pretty. And the attack wing Romulan D7 has got that as well, so it's a nice touch.
Yes, the Enterprise is surrounded, and it is a tense teaser, because you're like, what the fuck is going on? Why is Kirk behaving this way? And now it looks like all our crew are going to die. I mean, unless you're older and you've seen the movies, but watching this at the time, or, you know, or if you didn't really know Star Trek because you're too young for it, then it's a good teaser. So then, having been surrounded, Kirk then asks Uhura to signal Starfleet, sending all of the logs up till now and give them an update on the situation. She's about to do it, and there's a signal from the Romulan ship, and Kirk says, yeah, put it through, but you still send that information to Starfleet. And it's Sub-Commander Tal, and he says, you know, you're surrounded, you can either surrender or we'll destroy your ship. But as Kirk points out to Spock, they would have destroyed it already if they could have done, so there's something else at play here.
So So Sub-Commander Tal's played by somebody called Jack Donner, who will return in Season 4 of Enterprise as a Vulcan. He's also in Buffy, Frasier, The Flying Nun! Oh, we haven't had the Flying Nun for ages. And I really like him. He's really good in this.
Yeah.
The bridge of the Romulan D7 isn't as cool as that as a warbird. It hasn't got that sort of central console thing. But they make a lot of use of that red grating they use on the Enterprise, but with some purple light to try and make it look different.
Yeah. Well, I think it works well enough in that it's supposed to be a different ship, and they're not showing the bridge of the Enterprise as the bridge, if you see what I mean.
Yes, and not just redressing the Enterprise bridge, which would have been cheap.
Yeah. Spock says he has a theory as to how the ships sort of all came out of nowhere. And then they have a briefing, and he says that he thinks that the Romulans have got a cloaking device.
Which seems stupid because, like 2 years ago they had them in the Balance of Terror. And in actual fact, when this was originally written, it was going to be that they had a new type of cloaking device. So that whereas before the Starfleet could slightly detect it, now this one's an undetectable cloaking device. So it's a new thing. But the dialogue doesn't reflect that, sadly. So it just seems like they've forgotten that the Romulans have had cloaking devices for years.
Yeah. Spock then calls Kirk out on this predicament they find themselves in, because Kirk is like, we've got three options. We can surrender, we can be boarded, or we can fight and die, or we can let them blow us up, or or we can blow ourselves up. It's like everything resolves in death. And Spock's like, well, we're here because of you. You went here without the relevant order. You've put us in this position. And so McCoy's like, what? You sent us here without orders from Starfleet? And then he's like, McCoy dismissed. Then the Romulans signal, and they say they want an exchange of crew.
This is weird, isn't it? Because the Romulans outnumber them literally 3-1. They've got them surrounded, but rather than say, right, you beam over or we open fire, they go, well, if you beam over, we'll send 2 of our guys over as well. And it's like, what? You don't have to be so nice.
Well, I think for them it was a surprise seeing Spock.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, what they wanted was the Enterprise.
Yes. So if they can avoid destroying it, they will.
They will. But then she certainly wants Spock.
This would be our Bond villain.
Yes.
She has a very Bond villain chair. You kind of expect her to have a cat as well.
Yeah, you do. You do.
We know she's just Romulan commander. Spock finds out her name, nobody else does.
No.
Played by Joanne Linville, who had guest spots in shows like Kojak and Charlie's Angels, and went on to start her own acting school. But she oozes sexiness here.
Yeah, she does.
They tried to get her back for the fantastic Season 4 Next Generation story, Face of the Enemy, where Troy ends up as a Romulan. Obviously, she wasn't willing or available or whatever, so yeah. A shame, but she's really good in this. Anyway.
She is fantastic. And the thing is, although it may well be that she wants Spock because he's sexy, it's also entirely possible that she thinks we can try and turn him, then what can we learn from him? Do you know what I mean? In terms of, she could also be thinking of it in terms of an intelligence coup as well.
She could be, but if that's the case, she's keeping it very much under wraps, because the only impression you get is that she really loves him.
Or it could, that's what her motivation is. But her crew / the captains of the other ship are like, well, that'll be an intelligence coup. You go for it, darling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
So, yes, there's going to be a simultaneous exchange of crew. And Kirk says to Scotty, if we are not beamed back at the appointed time, you're to blow up the Enterprise. The Romulans cannot get her. And you can see that although, Scotty on one hand doesn't like this, he doesn't disagree with that. He's like, they're not getting their hands on my ship. The Romulan commander says she wants to speak to Kirk. And sends Spock away. He says that instrument failure led them to cross the neutral zone and they were surrounded before they knew it. She calls his bluff and calls him out on everything. She clearly doesn't believe it. So then she speaks to Spock and says, is it true or is it a myth that Vulcans are incapable of lying? And then he says, no, it's not a myth, but I don't have to say anything. It's what the pleading the fifth kind of thing, isn't
Yeah.
it? US style. No, I won't lie, but you can't make me tell the truth. I can just be silent. And then says, I won't incriminate my captain. I'll only speak the truth. And she's like, so there is a truth here that you're hiding, and calls out Kirk's lies. And she says, we've got very effective methods of Romulan torture, and they won't work against Spock, but they will work on Kirk, except Spock says no, they won't work on Kirk, actually. Mm-hmm. And then it says, in truth, Kirk is really under strain. And basically, Spock says he's not sane. And then says, the truth is he ordered us here, but he's not in his right mind. He hasn't been for some time. Kirk will be held in confinement.
And we get to see a really cool Romulan brig.
Yeah.
It's got loads of moving parts, like the control panel comes down, and then there's bits that come out to show that the force field's in place. I mean, they didn't have to do that. They could just do like light bulbs like they do on the Enterprise, but that was so much better. It was really cool. Yeah.
So with Kirk having been held in confinement, the Romulans are sort of saying, you're going to let us aboard. And Scotty's like, chuck those 2 Romulans in the brig. We're staying where we are, and if you attempt to board us, I'll blow you up. And then the Romulan commander starts talking to Spock and flirting with him and trying to say, are you Vulcan or are you Terra? And he's like, I'm half and half, but I consider myself Vulcan. And she's like, well, why have you not got a command? And he's like, well, I don't want one. And she's like, you sure? Or is there no opportunity in Starfleet for a Vulcan to have a command? I'll give you a command. He says that she clearly wants the Enterprise. And she's like, she's not denying it. It would be a big prize, she says. Then in the brig, Kirk hits the force field with huge force.
And crazy acting, as per usual.
Yeah. So then McCoy gets called, and he's like, I don't do house calls. He's like, no, you've got to go to the Romulan ship, it's the captain. So he goes over. And she says to Spock, attend me. Which reminded me of, I think it might have been Sarek, who said,
yes.
Wife, attend me. Or...
Yes.
And then she sort of stops herself and says, forgive me, no, will you come with me? And also, will you have dinner with me? Oh, okay. And then as they're walking, it's like, oh, nobody's allowed to go to this particular place. Only loyal Romulans. Hopefully at some point that will include you, Mr. Spock. And he's like, well, it'd be silly to expect that all political boundaries remain in place all the time. But he looks like he's succumbing to her.
It has to be said that the super secret location of the cloaking device is slightly given away by the ominous lighting.
Yes, it's the bright red bit. Come here.
Yeah, it's like, I wonder where it could be.
Yeah. And then Kirk is then removed from command because he's smashed his face in against the force field and gone completely bloody doolally. And so she says, like, look, Spock, you got what you want. You're now in command of the Enterprise, because clearly he can't be in command now. Was he ever, really? Was he in his right mind when you went over the border? And it's like, no, he wasn't. And then he says, must kill, and rushes towards him. And Spock just puts his hand over his face and kills him with the Vulcan face palm of death or something.
Yes. AKA the meme of death as well, because this picture was everywhere at one point on the internet.
And says it's the Vulcan death grip. And his body is transported back to the Enterprise.
Yep. Chapel wanders into sickbay and is shocked to see the captain come back from the dead. McCoy explains the captain and Spock were acting under orders. Turns out that the plan was to make Kirk seem mad and take the blame for them going into the neutral zone, basically. Get the rest of the crew in the Federation off the hook. I'm not sure that's going to stand up, but anyway, as Doctor points out, they took a chance in the Romulans not conducting a post-mortem on Kirk. I thought they would have done, but never mind. Not very thorough of them. McCoy orders Scotty to report to sickbay, and despite his understandable reluctance, he does so, only to find Kirk disguised as a Romulan and asking for a uniform from one of their hostages. We never find out what happens to these hostages, by the way.
No.
They certainly don't seem to have been returned, so...
Well, presumably, because they say they're going to let her off at her nearest starter base. Presumably they do the same with them.
Presumably, yes. You've got to feel slightly sorry for them. It was the Romulans being nice in sending them over in the first place. They didn't have to, but yeah. Bizarrely, having told Chapel to keep the captain's survival a secret, they don't give Scotty the same order, and so he just leaves and could be telling everybody at this point.
Yeah.
But the smile on his face when he realises Kirk's alive is really sweet, and
yeah.
Considering how much Doohan hated Shatner, is actually some good bit of acting.
Yeah,
The Romulan commander butters Spock up with Vulcan delicacies, including blue pop, Oh, I loved that stuff as a kid. Don't get it anymore. I think it was mostly E numbers.
Yes. Yeah. and also orange goopy shit that was like mango juice or something.
Yeah, I think that was like... No, on Bongo was kind of that colour, wasn't it? Yeah. Her quarters are a tad gaudy, but suitably different to the ones on the Enterprise. They beam Kirk over to the Romulan ship, despite not being given any coordinates by Spock. Don't beam me into a bulkhead, the captain asks. Well, how are they going to avoid that risk? I mean, The commander offers Spock an alternative to an empty life in Starfleet. Herself. She points out Romulans aren't lacking in emotion. She's kind of the Romulan Kirk at this point.
Yeah.
She whispers her first name to him, which he calls beautiful if Congress for a soldier. Was it Pat? Pat!
Probably something like peace or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or it means peace.
I don't know. Kirk distracts Romulus, his most gullible guard, with a over there and knocks him out with a judo chop. Again, you got to wonder how much of Mike Myers' Austin Powers fighting style was taken from
I
Shatner.
think it was, yep.
Spock lets his captain know where the cloaking device is kept, but their transmission is detected on the Romulan bridge. Their conversation's cut off by the Romulan commander entering in a fab 60s dress, and we get some Vulcan fingering.
Really want to see those fingers?
Really want to see those fingers.
Now, this was cut from the original BBC broadcast.
Was it? Just the fingers?
Yeah, for being too saucy.
Wow.
And Linville certainly sells it as being quite the turn-on. She practically sucks Spock's pinkies at one point. In the original script, they were just going to kiss, but Nimoy and Linville decided something more alien was called for, thankfully. Foolishly, I bought this when it was out on video. I don't think I got any rest of the season 3 episodes, but I'd heard this one had a cut scene with Spock and the Romulan making love, so I thought I was going to get something rather more saucy than I did for my U-rated CIC video. They're interrupted by the sub-commander updating them about finding out about the transmission, which came from her room, and Spock fesses up. And the commander immediately realises they're after the cloaking device. The equipment in question is clearly a combination of Nomad's head from the Changeling and one of the big glowy balls from Return to Tomorrow that stored the alien's consciousness.
Yeah.
A less gullible Romulan disarms Kirk, but then stupidly gets his gun kicked out of his hand when he goes to pick up Kirk's. Apparently the Romulan Navy don't employ the smartest crew. The idiots have also failed to raise their shield, so Kirk is able to beam off to the Enterprise. Twonks! Scotty's given an oh-so-generous 15 minutes to get the cloak working. Commander gives Spock a slap, and he asks what their present form of execution is. Apparently, it's painful and unpleasant. So, death by James' last concert it is, then.
Ooh.
I'd like to welcome you to this little concert. The first medley is from our album called Make the Party Last.
Quite why the Romulans don't open fire at this point is beyond me. Again, I suppose they're trying to save the Enterprise, but... Spock gets to make a statement which kills a bit of time. He talks about the new cloaking device being a threat to the security of the Federation. Scanning for Spock, Chekhov is struggling to tell Vulcans and Romulans apart, like the racist he is. And again, why haven't the Romulans raised their shields, for heaven's sake? They know that this is going to happen, but sure enough, Spock is beamed aboard, along with the Romulan commander. And the Enterprise just warps away under the Romulans' noses. Sub-Commander Tal hails, and the commander bravely orders him to open fire. At the last minute, Scotty gets the cloak working, though. Spock escorts the commander to guest quarters, telling her that all they wanted was the cloaking device. What about you, she asks. He hints that she meant something to him, and she points out the Romulans will work out how to penetrate the cloak, and Spock admits that military secrets have a short shelf life. I guess indicating why the Federation don't use the device going forwards, because, it ain't going to be that long before the Romulans figure out how to see it anyway. And the episode finishes with a vaguely amusing bit of business regarding Kirk having to lose his Vulcan look, but it's not a full-on crappy joke like we got in seasons 1 and 2, so I've actually got a bit more patience for that.
Yeah, and also it's not anti-Vulcan, it's sort of anti-Kirk / anti-human, like those ears really don't suit you, do you want to get them off, kind of thing.
Spock gives a final, oh, good grief, I've got to work with this guy look.
Yeah.
So is it classic or is it toss, buddy?
I think this is a classic. I really enjoyed it.
For season 3, it definitely is a classic. I mean, compared with the dross we've had to put up with over the past few weeks, this is a real breath of fresh air.
I think it's really good. I think also this is what the writers of Next Gen drew on for unification. That because she talks about how some of the similarities and how he would be respected, and it makes me wonder whether, because he wouldn't have come across Romulans before, he would have known about them but not interacted with one, and it makes me think that maybe that's it. So there's the seeds of, actually our species are not so far apart, our cultures are not as far apart as we might have been told they are.
Yeah, I do think the Romulans benefit from only appearing, technically 3 times, but when you actually see physical Romulans twice in the original series, so they remain a nice bit of mystery for them to unpack then in Next Generation. So, whereas the Klingons just become the renter baddies, there's a bit more to the Romulans.
Yeah. I think this is particularly well acted by Leonard Nimoy.
Yes, and it's great that Spock gets the romantic role for a change, isn't it?
And I really like whatever her name was, the actor who played the principal Romulan commander.
Livell or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. I thought she was really good.
No, she's excellent. She's playing it straight, which you need to.
But so she's sexy, she's smouldering, and she's plotting. Do you know what I mean? She's intelligent as well, which I really like.
The only downside is, did this plan rely on there being a Romulan commander who'd fall for Spock? Because otherwise he wouldn't have got so far, would he, if it had been a straight Romulan male? Arguably.
I don't know. I think maybe the idea behind Spock going was to find a way to inveigle himself on the basis that he would be more accepted.
But they really looked out, didn't they? Because it was a female commander who fell for him.
Which is true, but then he was delayed. They hadn't anticipated her wanting to spend that much time with him. So it could be that they knew who the commander of the device with the cloaking device was.
No, I don't think so.
But I think it's more likely that there was a vague plan in place.
Yeah, and they were going to have to wing it.
They were going to have to wing it, but the idea was that Spock is not getting the recognition he's due within the Federation, and that he was going to turn, if you see what I mean.
The best thing, along with Nimoy's performance, you're quite right, and the guest star's performance, is it is really well written, with properly, written baddies who aren't completely baddies.
Yeah.
It's similar to Balance of Terror, where they're quite noble and they're not all just evil for being evil's sake, or just replacements for commies. So it's a real breath of fresh air for season 3. Just unfortunate, I think it's going to be a bit of a rarity, but there we go.
Yeah, but for me, this is one of the ones I've enjoyed most over the whole of the series. I think partly because you can excuse the shacting because he's playing a part of being mad.
He's supposed to be look mad.
Do you see what I mean?
And he does that pretty well.
Yeah, he does.
Unfortunately, he also does it when he's not supposed to be looking mad.
But in terms of this story, it works.
I kill you! I kill you!
Yeah. So it's, so it works. The mad acting style works. It focuses much more on Spock than it does on Kirk, which is always a good thing as far as I'm concerned. The baddies are 3-dimensional. So for me, this is definitely a classic, and it's one of the best episodes of Trek, not just for season 3, but just generally. Not the best, but one of the best.
Yeah, good. Well, let's find out what other people thought. We've heard from Jeff Hyman. I'm not sure if it's a good one, but I love it. Okay. Fun espionage action enhanced by story-justified shacting. There you go. It's best not to think about it too deeply, as the plan doesn't really make sense under increased scrutiny. And the Vulcan death grip... Your instincts are still good, Mr. Spock. The captain is dead. Thank you, sir. And Boss has this to say. This episode started with the crew being worried about Kirk acting strangely, which I found odd, as I didn't think Shatner did any other type of acting. This time, though, his weirdness led to the Enterprise in the neutral zone surrounded by Romulans. It was good to see a bit more of the Romulans, and it was a nice surprise they had a female commander. I did wonder if she was going to be revealed as another old flame of Kirk's, and that the mission was to rescue her. I was glad this wasn't the case. Instead, we had a lot of scenes with her and Spock, which I mostly enjoyed, other than the weird hand-touching bits. Oh, right, he didn't enjoy that bit. The fake death was a bit far-fetched, but otherwise the story was okay, moved along quickly enough, the real purpose of the mission slowly revealing itself. Good to see Scotty getting involved, even though his final flick the switch moment was ruined slightly by it being a button, not a switch. That's true, I hadn't thought of that. The Romulan commander did seem more upset about losing Spock than the cloaking device. Surely she was going to get into a lot of trouble over that. Well, not anymore, because she's she's now with the Federation anyway. Overall, it was a good story. It was nice to see more of the Romulans, and there was nothing that made me cringe. I was surprised that now the Enterprise is a cloaking device, we don't see more of it in the future. Well, they do kind of address that, don't they? So, yeah. Of course, by Next Generation, we have the Treaty of Algernon, or whatever it is, that means that they're not allowed to have cloaking devices on Federation ships. But anyway. We've also heard from Sampo and Yona.
Hello.
Hello.
So we just watched the Enterprise incident.
What happened in it?
Espionage, dishonest behavior.
Oh, the one that Spock got a job offer.
It almost looked like for once Spock was gonna get a woman, but no.
It almost looked like he was gonna get some, and then Kirk was busting in the room.
Yeah, I mean, the moment I saw the Romulan leader was a woman, I mean, I was half expecting Kirk to be snogging her by the end of the episode, but no.
He was grinning, though.
Well, he was grinning when he wasn't shacking his head off, yelling at Spock that he's a traitor. I do feel a bit sorry for the Romulan woman, although she was way too trusting.
I guess, yeah.
But I mean, maybe you'd be too if you get Spock to finger you. Yeah, I know, low-hanging fruit. Had to go there. I mean, at least he didn't give her the Vulcan death grip down there.
Okay, I'm off here.
Okay. The cloaking device is just a big ball then, and you jam it into the Enterprise with some cables, and then you can just make the device disappear because, why not? A few weeks ago they repaired the warp drive by jamming rocks into it, so I mean, I guess it's all fine. Please say something. I can't do this alone. Do you have any opinion on can a woman be a warrior at the same time or something?
I might have had one, but cannot say. Cannot unthink anything else than fingering, so a woman should be able to be both.
Yes, I agree. I am a modern man with modern sensibilities. But I mean, at least she changed into a costume that showed a fraction more of her skin, so then she was a woman, I guess.
Yeah. I think this was a rather boring episode.
Yeah, it was a bit too slow. I think, I mean, it was trying to create a atmosphere that, okay, Kirk is really crazy or something, but
Do you believe it?
No, I mean, not for a second. That was my point. It was just like, why even bother? I mean,
but wouldn't it be a problem that Kirk says that if I'm not coming back, just kill yourselves? Or would they die? If they would have exploded the ship, would they have died?
Well, they have shuttles, and I think they might have escape pods as well. I'm not sure.
Where would they have escaped then?
Well, I mean, I guess they'd all be prisoners because there were 3 ships around them. If they didn't just shoot them down for fun. Let's just say that the plan really wasn't great. I'm not even sure what the plan was. Did it depend on the commander being a woman and them throwing Kirk in jail and them calling the doctor over and letting them keep the body? I mean, there were so many moving parts to that.
Didn't they have their own doctor?
Good point. Well, I mean, one could argue that McCoy was more familiar with humans than they.
Did we get the Satan reference again?
Yes, we did. I mean, you look like the devil himself. I mean, I guess I mean, at least they're consistent, so I can't complain.
That's the only thing they're consistent with.
That's right.
I bet we never see the fading device again.
Actually, yeah, we do. It's a pretty big deal. They always have them from now on.
What? And this is how they got that?
Yep, the big ball.
I hate this idea. Stupid idea.
Well, the fact I hate is that they don't seem to have shields, because shields should block the transporters, and they could just transport to the ship and away from there really without anyone noticing, and that's stupid.
That's stupid.
That's stupid.
Alright.
The whole episode is stupid. Okay, it's not stupid. It was a bit boring. It's not offensive, so I mean, it's better than the last few ones.
It was offensive to women warriors.
Well, there's that. Well, let's see who the next episode offends. I have no idea what it is, so let's see. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I mean, she's a bit too trusting, I suppose. That's the downside. You kind of, the only excuse is that she's in love.
Yeah.
But they do address the fact that they were lucky that there wasn't a post-mortem of Kirk. Cause, yes, that would have given the game away rather, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. I mean, why would / how would another race's technology from a completely different culture and everything automatically, connect with ours? Well, arguably it should take a very long time for Scotty to work out how to make the two compatible, in the same way as O'Brien is always fighting, trying to get Cardassian and Federation technology to talk to each other in Deep Space Nine. But as you rightly point out in the previous episode, they powered the Enterprise with rocks. So, on that sort of... on that basis, you just kind of go with it, really.
Yeah. And I don't think escape pods are a thing yet. I mean, one would hope they have them, but they're never mentioned. And, there's various, Mr. Scott's Guide to the Enterprise and the technical manuals that were put together by fans in the day. I don't think they ever mentioned escape pods. It's only once you get to Next Generation and they actually build them into the models where the escape pods are going to be and think about that sort of thing.
I mean, I would think they would have them just because this is based off of the Navy and the Navy has lifeboats.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have them now, so why wouldn't they have them?
Yeah, so I think they would have them. But
there's nowhere obvious for them to be on the model, it has to be said.
No, but, maybe they're inside and then get released or something. You don't,
No.
So I don't have a problem with that. But as you rightly say, okay, so they set the Enterprise to self-destruct, they get in escape pods, and then what? They just get captured as prisoners. It's not like they can power an escape pod to go anywhere.
No, but they could have set the Enterprise to self-destruct and so that it wouldn't fall into Romulan hands and escape rather than be blown up with their ship. So that would have been good.
But they would then have been captured by the Romulans. They would have been
But the point is that they haven't lost the Enterprise into Romulan hands then.
No, and I don't know why they didn't raise shields at any point. I mean, when they thought they had the cloaking device,
I know it's mad.
We know from Klingons that you have to drop your shields in order to cloak. So while they thought they had the cloaking device, I get that they wouldn't have put their shields up. But at the moment they know somebody's fucked off with it, they should be putting their shields up, because what have they got to lose? A lot, it would appear, but yeah.
Right, next up we hear from the Llama God, whose email is entitled The Spy Who Fingered Me, so there's definitely a theme emerging here.
Yeah.
Lord Scotty, fixie care. Och, Trijig. Excuse me, your shoelaces are untied. Now, excuse me, but what did I just watch? What the fuck was that? Because I've just watched an episode of Star Trek in Season 3, and it actually didn't suck, and actually it was good. This is kind of bucking the trend a bit, isn't it? But yeah, this is actually a good, entertaining, interesting episode of Star Trek, and it's come along at quite a good time. I think after last week's episode, I would be surprised if people weren't considering bailing, and whether that letter-writing campaign to save the series is worth it after all. But yeah, nice Cold War-ish idea here, where we're trying to steal technology from the other side. There's certainly a nice idea here, where Captain Kirk seems to have gone rogue, and yes, early in the episode, you do wonder what's going on here, especially again with the previous episode with Paradise Syndrome. It does initially look like this is going to be an excuse for Shatner to flex his acting spleen, but no, it turns out there's actually a good story reason for him overacting like he does. I mean, kind of a good story reason. Okay, there's some sort of explanation there anyway, and it doesn't dominate the episode at all. So yeah, the fact that that's actually given a good reason. Of course, the Enterprise crew look a bit concerned about Kirk giving orders, but also, hey, he's just Kirk being a dick again. So actually, yeah, we've seen Kirk being a dick enough in the past that him being a dick on the bridge here to all the crew is like, yeah, here we go again. What's the problem this time? So yeah, it's kind of in keeping with character, which isn't the best look for Kirk himself, actually. But never mind. Anyway, it's all just a ruse, isn't it? And it kind of works in the end. I guess one complaint would be that, yes, we get Kirk's death in this, but then immediately after the cut to the advert break, he comes back alive again. But I don't think anyone at this point watching would have actually suspected he'd be dead. So possibly the weak part of this episode is that the Romulans could potentially look very dumb in this episode, in that they give the Enterprise far too long, they give it an hour, and then they don't suspect anything at all about Kirk and Spock's behaviour. So yeah, I mean, you could put that down to some sort of arrogance on behalf of the Romulans, that there's no way that the Federation crew would ever outsmart them. They are stronger and more intelligent, so yeah, you could read it like that, but there is a danger that, yeah, they do get caught with their pants down a little bit. But it's easy to look, because the actual central core of this episode is the relationship between the Romulan commander and Spock, and that's some great performances there from the both of them. There's none of the overblown, simpering romance of the previous week. This is logical, buttoned down, but you believe something there. Nimoy's performance especially, you can believe that there's something in the Romulan commander. I'm sorry, I can't remember if she ever got a name, and I didn't look it up before hitting record on this. But yeah, you believe that there is something there between them, and again, that's down to Nimoy, and I can kind of see now why he was the sexy one in this series because, yeah, Kirk's over the top. Spock here, very, very reserved and, yeah, very intriguing. So, yeah, there's a really good performance between both of them. And, yeah, you can certainly believe that there is something there. There is, of course, still a slight air of misogyny to it because, of course, it is the 60s, this is Star Trek, where the commander has to go and stop being a soldier and start becoming a woman by changing to a slinky dress. Like, hey, yeah. But, you know, to be honest, at this stage, this is far from the worst thing that the series has done in this area. So, yeah, whatever. I guess it's part of the story. I mean, it does make her look a little bit weak that she falls for Spock so easily, but I guess that's the kind of story that was being told here. So, yeah. But, yeah, it is their central relationship and what's going on between those two characters, which really makes this episode worthwhile and worth watching. Scotty's also good in this episode. His glee with which he wants to relieve some of the prisoners of their items of clothing and gear. That's okay. He's itching for something here, isn't he? And just how he generally is when he's installing the cloaking device. Yeah, great stuff. I love to see all of that. There's only one real question that comes out of this episode, though, is the Romulan commander. You do notice on her introduction, she turns around in her big leather chair. I mean, that's a nice command chair, very nice. She turns around, you do get an air of a woman. And yeah, the cast raises the question, is this the first female starship captain we've seen in the original series? I don't recall there being any female Federation starship captains, so yeah, the Romulans one step ahead of the Federation? If that's the case, that's a bad look on you, Starfleet. Yeah, I know that we've seen high-ranking female officials before. I think maybe we've seen some admirals or commodores or something in one of the core episodes, but yeah, this is the first starship captain, so yeah, not so good there. And the other slight incongruity is, of course, the interior of the Romulan ship that we see. The one thing that immediately jumps out is that it's not very beige, is it? It's a lot more colourful than the Romulus that we get used to in the TNG era, and I'm kind of thankful of that. Yes, it is very 60s, isn't it? But it's a damn sight more interesting to look at than those beige 90s corridors that we got to see in the Next Generation. So yeah, let's return to this kind of Romulus, shall we? Especially now that Romulus has been destroyed and it's all about the Nivar now. Let's get back to some of that, shall we? Yeah, probably not. So yes, quite an enjoyable episode, this one, much to my surprise, and that's very welcome. Let's just hope season 3 can keep at this level of quality. Just looking at the other episodes coming. Okay. Oh well. Anyway, so as ever, I'll be interested to find out what everyone else made of this. I hope you had a good holiday away, and I hope everyone else has had a good summer, because looking out the window right now, summer has definitely ended up here in Scotland anyway. Not that it ever really started. And until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Scotland has a summer. I didn't know that happened. But anyway. Yeah, it does seem like a far less bad thing that she has to change to be more of a woman compared to what we've seen in previous episodes. Yeah. So, yes, we'll give him a pass for that, definitely. But she's definitely our first female captain, as he says. You know, shame on you, Starfleet, really.
Yeah.
And I can't remember there being any senior women in Starfleet up till now. I mean, literally her, I think, has been the highest ranking woman we've had.
There was one, I think she might have been a diplomat or something.
I think they've all been men so far.
No, one, and she was in a shuttle and they were taking her down.
Oh, that's right. No, you're quite right. There was a woman, yes. One of the many irritating, diplomat figures. Yes.
Yeah. So, not necessarily a Starfleet officer, but we have seen a high-ranking woman, but not as a Starfleet officer.
You're right, yes.
There we are, remembered something.
Yeah, very good.
Do I get to shout at you now because you should somehow have remembered?
You do, yes. That's how it works. Equal opportunities anoraking on this podcast. The anorak can be worn by a man or a woman. And you're quite right. The Romans are a lot more colourful in the original series, aren't they? In terms of how they light their ships.
Yeah, but at the moment in this country, we've got this fashion where everybody has to paint everything fucking grey.
Yeah, you see, the Romans just went through their
They had a beige phase in the same way as we've got a grey phase at the moment.
Excellent. Okay. Drew and Tracy. I mean, I'd be happy if he calls this a classic. So,
yeah, so would I. But is he going to buck the trend?
Yeah, I was going to say, that probably means he's going to hate it, doesn't it?
Hello, so we just watched The Enterprise Incident.
And what do we think of that one then?
I thought it was really good.
Go on, say it.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone's going to say this isn't a classic.
Yeah, no, I did watch it and I was thinking, this is going to be a classic.
Yes.
So let's go through some bits.
Okay.
So it starts off with Kirky on the bridge and he's in a right grumpy shop for reasons we know not at that point. And he's making all these rash decisions, stropping off at everybody, and then he decides to take them into the neutral zone.
Yeah.
And you're all thinking, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they encounter the Romulans. And they have a bit of argy-bargy on the screen, and then all of a sudden Spock says, "We're surrounded, Captain."
They do, yeah.
By 3 ships.
Yes, so they could just go up or down, couldn't
Exactly.
they?
Or they could just reverse the fuck out of there. I don't think you're
Or
surrounded
like
by
at the end,
cruise
just go
ships.
to warp 9 when they just fly off between them, couldn't
Yes.
they? There's a few options there.
So we have to talk about the Romulan officer who actually engages with Kirk at first. He looked like he was out of an 80s
Oh,
new
yeah.
romance or a punk
is
band.
he the commander?
No,
Commander.
well, she's the commander.
What, the second in command
Yeah, I
guy,
just
yes.
called him like the officer.
Yes.
But yeah, he definitely looked like he should have been.
Yeah, he's got a lot of
in an
makeup
80s
on,
band.
hasn't he? A
Yeah.
lot of makeup. I really love, like, the Romulan commander and Spock's interplay.
Do you reckon?
The whole way through. The thing is with them, obviously, Spock, Leonard Nimoy, is an excellent actor, and I think the woman playing the Romulan commander is an excellent actor as
Yeah.
well. And they just like totally like make this episode so good.
Yeah.
Like she's good with all her like sexiness to Spock, and Spock is just so smouldering.
Yeah.
He's absolutely laying on the smoulder. I mean, every single line he does is just like so smooth.
Well, it's all innuendo-y
Yeah,
and just a
that's
bit
so
like
good. The pair of them.
flirty.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's just go back a little bit. So when Spock is calling out Kirk for telling lies
Yes.
and doing all
Oh
this,
yeah.
and then Kirk just goes like wacko jacko,
He
didn't he?
does,
And he
yeah.
was just like, his face was just like, my
Yep, he's
goodness.
shacked in terribly.
And
And,
then-
and he goes like, I kill you.
I
He
kill you.
literally says
I
that.
kill you.
He literally
We did
says
laugh at that bit. But then
He
Spock
does.
does the Vulcan death
The
grip on
Vulcan
him.
death grip, yes.
Right on his face.
Yeah, he does. And then even when Shatner's playing dead, he's unconvincing. He just doesn't look dead,
He
does
just
he?
had that grimace on his face. But my question is, how do you do a death grip on your face? Surely you do it on your neck.
Oh, I don't
or...
think it's actually a thing, is it? They were faking
Oh, did
it.
they make
yeah.
it? Oh, I was believing that one.
No.
Oh. So then we discover that it's all a ruse and that the Federation
Yes.
have asked them to go and do that so they
Get
can
the
get
cloaking
the cloaking
device,
device.
yeah.
And then Kirk decides that he's going to go back onto the ship
Yes.
dressed up like a Romulan.
Yes.
What the fuck?
I know.
At that point, I was saying to you, what is happening in this
I
episode?
know,
It
it
was
does.
just
It's a bit wonky.
crazy.
Yep.
And does he really think that they're not going to recognise him?
I don't know. I don't know.
For crying out loud. And then when he picks up the cloaking device,
Yes.
at first he looks like he's going to stick it up his jumper.
Yes, it's a funny old instrument, that
Yeah.
cloaking device, isn't it?
And it takes them, when the Romulans and the commander come into the control room, it takes them about 10 seconds
I
before
know,
they
it's
go,
just a big thing in
the
the
cloaking
middle.
device is missing. It's like being
Yes.
fucking hanging down like a
Yeah.
great big chandelier. How did you not notice it instantly?
Yep. Now, there's some very hooky stuff in here. The whole clan and, like, the fact that they're lying and Kirk is shacked in. Even, like, Captain Kirk is shacked in his grumpiness.
Yeah.
But the whole episode is made by the Romulan commander and Spock. I mean, the whole episode is just them two, really, isn't it?
Well, she was just being a bit like seducing him,
Yeah,
wasn't she? So,
I think it's great. I
bit
think
of
it's a
a-
really good episode. I'll be
flirty
surprised if anyone doesn't like this one, but maybe they will. Anyway,
well, yeah. I enjoyed it.
it's great.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed this a lot.
Anyway, should we leave it there?
Okie dokie.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. No, we're agreeing with
No,
you.
I think everybody's up for this one.
Yeah, it is definitely a classic. And yeah, no, the death grip is a fake thing. Chapel says she
Yes.
actually says
Yeah, there's no such
such
thing.
as
And
a-
we know she's an expert on Vulcan, so that's good.
Yes.
Nice bit of continuity there. Yes, but death grip to the face.
Yes.
That's the worst kind. Surrounded in two-dimensional space.
Oh yeah, no, why not go
space.
up or down? Yeah, good point.
Reveals two-dimensional thinking, Captain. Yeah, I Sub-Commander is very sort of Depeche Mode, isn't he?
He is a bit.
And you could tell that DC Fontana had a thing for Spock, can't you, the way she wrote this?
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing. Spock is nice.
No. Shatner even does dead unconvincingly. It's true, though. He's like arced and it doesn't look...
Yeah, he doesn't look very dead, does he? No, it's not overly believable.
But unfortunately, you did rather remind me when you were talking about them nicking the great big cloaking device that they should have spotted was gone immediately.
Yeah.
Of that awful Deep Space Nine episode where the Ferengi nick a cloaking device that's cloaked.
Oh, God,
And you
yes.
get all that nonsense mine business. It's like, oh dear.
Is that a Mirror Universe one?
I think it is.
Because I don't tend to like Mirror Universe
Certainly
ones
the later
either.
ones particularly were poop, weren't they? But anyway,
Yeah.
we get to re-experience those all over again. Hurrah!
Yeah. Where have we got to in our rewatch?
We're about halfway through season 1.
Yeah.
We've got past Move Along Home at least. So.
Yes.
Clone Peaks. Anyway, that's a whole different series. Finally, let's hear what Purry made of this one.
Hello, Orcs. Purry here to talk about the Enterprise incident. Now, this was a season 3 episode I remember enjoying, and to be honest, I still did. I think there's a lot to like about this one. But it's not quite as good as I remember. I don't mean to be too harsh on it. My main dislike of it, to get that kind of out of the way, is I kind of thought it was a bit of an arsey move for the first time we see a female captain. Okay, you've got standard Bill Thies thing that actually a woman captain's uniform would be a miniskirt and go-go boots. But the fact that the captain was kind of seduced by Spock, and in fact I don't quite know if that was the plan or if they were improvising, but definitely, Spock used his Vulcan wiles on her, and there's a bit of a, come on, she was a professional. We've only seen a few episodes ago that apparently Kirk, on the other hand, would fight through someone's special genetic love juice and still be able to retain command. So, a bit of a on that. The other thing was I just felt it sagged in the middle. While I quite liked the concept of Spock's seduction sort of techniques, I thought it went on a bit long, and that was there was a middle chunk of the episode where basically it was Spock chatting up the Romulan captain and Kirk being crazy. That said, first time I watched it, and I think that's probably, this one does lose a little on the rewatch, because the first time you watch it, and particularly if you were in the 1960s, I can imagine there would have been a definite what the hell is going on here kind of feel. Kirk's acting horribly irrational. They do have the medical log saying that he's maybe been on patrol a bit, but he's snippy from the start, and he's going a bit nuts, and basically barrels into the neutral zone. But of course it was all a covert plan, which was deniable, and I quite like that idea that Starfleet needed to see a cloaking device, and we did a plan that if it went wrong would be deniable, and so it was actually, Kirk was willing to take the fall on that. I did have a slight gripe as well of Kirk says, why didn't you see the ships? And Spock says they may have a cloaking device, and you could kind of bash that as well. They saw one ship with a cloaking device, they didn't think they were ubiquitous, but really it does seem like they're half forgetting that Balance of Terror happened, as opposed to they could have a cloaking device. Oh yeah, I remember we saw that, yeah. That would probably be better, but again, they weren't really up for acknowledging things there. But yeah, like I said, there's a definite sense of tension, a definite feeling kind of your Cold War vibes in this one, and it's nice to see the Romulans again. I just kind of wish it had maybe a bit less Vulcan romance, although I did like the fact that Spock's the one doing the romancing, it's not Kirk. Spock actually gets to romance someone, so that was a nice touch as well. But still, I think a decent third season episode, maybe not up to some of the standard of the better season 1 or 2 episodes, but still decent enough. So all that remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I also look forward to the podcast and hopefully feedback in the next one. But until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Yeah, it does have a real what the fuck feel to it at the start, where you're trying to work out what's going on.
Certainly the first time you see it, it's like, well, hang on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunate. Certainly, it was DC Fontana's intention that it would be made clear that this was a new improved cloaking device, but that's not really made clear in the story and the dialogue. So
no, unfortunately.
But there are Cold War vibes, and that's from the sort of true life origins of the story, basically. So that's why that comes up.
Yeah, and I don't know if I do want less of the romance. I quite liked it, and I found
it was a refreshing change for it not to be Kirk. Let's face it.
But also, it felt, unlike the stuff that you often get with Kirk or whatever, it felt mutual.
Yeah.
It felt respectful.
Even at the end, when it's clear that he's effectively betrayed her, but there's still that respect there.
Yeah. So it didn't feel cheap, I think is what I'm trying to say, whereas most of the ones with Kirk do.
Yes. Well, there we go. Everybody enjoyed it, which is good.
Yay, it's a good one!
Yes.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Next week, on the 22nd, we'll be covering Lower Decks Something Borrowed, Something Green, which is a Tendy heavy episode. And on the 28th, we're covering And the Children Shall Lead.
Oh, God, it's not that one, is it?
Yes.
Oh,
I did warn you that
fuck
the improvement in quality wasn't going to continue, and oh boy.
No.
Followed with the next original series episode after that, by the way, is Spock's Brain. So,
yeah, that's funny.
Okay, so maybe you look forward to that more. But anyway,
it's you know how you've got movies that are so bad they're good. That for me is Spock's Brain.
Yeah, but whereas this one, I said to Quinn, "Oh, do watch this one because it's Spock heavy and they like Spock." I won't be recommending they watch the next one.
No, I think they'll just want to kill us.
Yes, understandably. Anyway, until then, take care. Cheery bye.
Bye.
The Star Trek theme was written by Alexander Courage, and here was arranged and performed by Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Palastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Shut it down!